Well, welcome back. This is Charlie with episode 16. Just on a personal note, had our only second social interaction in a year. The former dean of the business school, Larry Singel, and his wife Barbara came over for dinner last night. We had a great time, and our dog Newton, was really well behaved, and they enjoyed him. And Larry is always a big fan of my work, and he commented very nicely. He said, "One of the things that I really like about what you do, and I haven't mentioned this too much, so I'm glad he reminded me. You tell people, excuse me, you tell people to experiment with this. And why do I say that? Well, first, I'm an experimental physicist. I love the idea of experiments. And secondly, try it out. I think this will work, but I'm more comfortable saying to you, go ahead and see what works for you. And I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. That's an approach I prefer rather than claiming to have absolute truth. So we're going to continue the process of integration. And in this section, we're going to be integrating emotions and storylines to make mindsets. Now, another word for that is attitude. I like the word mindset better because attitude has other connotations like bad attitude and things like that. So I went looking for an image that had this unit. I put them into Google Images, looked at the word unification for a nice image, and I thought this was perfect. My geometry kid, geometry right. So it's the motions on one side and storylines on the other, matching our coordinate system of emotions and thoughts. And so I found this image, thought this was great. It's merging into one unified piece. And so I clicked on the image and I read what it's about. Now I was quite surprised. It was about the standard model of physics and what are called gauge theories and gauge symmetries and SU3 and things in theoretical physics. So the sign actually spoke to me at multiple levels. So without further ado, let's get into the slides and get going. So here we go with our integration of emotions and thoughts, which I'm going to call storylines. So this is a quote from a very popular leadership writer, Warren Bennis, and I read this in one of his books, and I was taken aback. There is not one trait or characteristic that has any potential, any value in predicting leadership potentials, none, not even intelligence. If you believe that, is it hopeless? If leadership doesn't correlate with anything, is it impossible to learn? And also, why do people commonly say leaders are born, not made? I don't hear it about surgeons. I don't hear it about football quarterbacks. What's going on here? And why do leadership development programs, which the U.S. business spends the equivalent of the NASA budget every year, get such abysmal results? And what's my reference point? It's polls and surveys. If you do polls, look at polls and surveys of what people think of business executives in the U.S., their leadership effectiveness, they're in the basement. So what do these ideas inform? Well, I do a little exercise, and I used to do this with the workshop, but just to save a little time, I skipped it because everybody knows what's going on here. And I asked people to write names of leaders they admired in their workbooks. There's, of course, Angela Merkel, arguably one of the great political leaders of our time, Oprah. This happens to be the CEO of Northrop Grumman because I was doing a workshop for them. I'll put someone more appropriate later. And you can put in family, friends, uncles, relatives, and everybody can do this. I give a few minutes for this. And then I have them write down the attributes that made these people great leaders in their workbook. And I've taken a few common ones and characterized them according to the four dimensions. They talk about leadership with people that are caring and empathetic, collaborative, helping people work together, innovative, we got to create the Elon Musk of the world, and decisive to make decisions. And then I asked them as a group, we read them on a flip chart. Well, I actually back up. they write these things. I take them out randomly, what I call popcorn style from the group, write them on flip charts. There's lots of ways to do this. This is the way I've been doing it. And then I go through each one with the group and ask, what is it more about, attitudes or skills? And there's never 100%, but there's almost always a strong consensus. What do you think is consistently reported by every group I've ever done? And that's why I don't do the exercise, because they know. And if I ask them at this point, what's it more about? The consensus will immediately come up with, promptly and with no effort, it's about attitudes. So if attitude is everything, why don't people teach it? I was reflecting on all of the so-called leadership courses NASA sent me to, these expensive things, and I never heard that I can recall the word attitude. Everything there was what I would call skills training. Why don't they do it? They don't have an organizing system. Without an organizing system, attitude is a mysterious thing. So the 4D system simplifies mindsets into two components you can manage. It's our same process of analysis over and over and over, using the coordinate system like kind of a simple equation. Emotions, which are the source of human energy, and thoughts, which drive where human behaviors go. We want to use these like two banks of a V8 engine together, the emotions and thoughts, and we're going to see how to do that. How contagious are attitudes? Worse than the common cold? I think so. Worse than COVID? No, I shouldn't bring that up. So a couple of mindset examples. Effective delegation. This is a big one. I had a lot of problems with scientists who work for me, with staff under them, who couldn't delegate. And I sent them off to delegation classes that did no good. I got it. It wasn't about that they didn't understand it. They're smart people. They're physicists. You can explain delegation. They say, I got it. But the important thing is the mindset shift that supports the behavior. And I think the emotions that we always want are glad and love group, because they constructively energize, as I showed you with the diagrams. And the storyline, I can authentically appreciate people who do not do the work as well as I can. That's a tough one for people, because we have especially scientists have so much time in academia where you're appreciated for what you do. So this is the mindset. How about honesty? These same energizing emotions. And I think 100% committed to living in integrity. Integrity means that your words match your deeds. How to motivate action. I talked about this. Mad or scared, warning of calamity with caring is very powerful. And green storylines and some version of whatever it takes. These are what I call response able to respond. Effective communicator, you got to be able to use all the emotions and be able to be 100% committed until you're understood. So these are 4 examples of mindsets that combine emotions and thoughts. I hear a lot of inquiry about how to manage your stress. So this is how you manage your state of being. I'll tell you a little story. I was doing a workshop in China some years ago, and that's when I was still taking questions from the larger audience. And someone asked me a question I had addressed as best I could twice before. So it made me frustrated. When I went back to the hotel that night, this was at the end of the day, I did my usual thing, somatic psychology, what's going on emotionally. I'm angry, mad. That tells me that I'm in a drama state. I asked it, what is the storyline powering this? And the storyline I was running was the easy one to find. He was probably playing with his phone when I explained this. I have lots of difficulty with the Chinese audiences playing with their cell phones. Now, what's interesting about this is I also realized that I had no evidence for this. I did not see this. I paid no attention to this person until they asked me the question. So this was purely an invention of my mind, what we called earlier a projection of my stuff. So now we want to go to what's the behavior. We always want to go to attention, mindset, behavior. Behavior was no useful explanation. I quit and I'm blaming him. Result, bad feelings and confusion. So what do? You make the mindset shift. You change the storyline first. That's the easy part. And I think the simple version of this is to move out of drama into responsibility, ability to respond, and empathy and take accountability. So my storyline, I replaced it with, and it's not hard to change your thought. He's trying his best to learn, and it's my duty to help him. Perfect. This made me feel glad. I felt energized. I went in the next day, made a cheerful explanation, good feelings, and deeper understanding. Very simple process, these folks. I mean, you can master this with a little practice. So I worked a lot with service organizations, and I had them surface storylines, and they complained about their customer said you're too expensive. And I said, when you hear that, how does it make you feel? Frustrated. Frustrated is a nice word for angry. It's very, very common emotional response. Storyline is powering it. I'm tired of dealing with these ungrateful idiots. It's hopeless. No communication. When you see the word hopeless, think victim. This has a bit of blamer in it too, but I want to really focus on the hopelessness and the assumption of a state of helplessness. Result, bad feelings, no resolution to the issue. Mindset shift. They're under cost pressure. This organization was servicing the flight projects, and they are. That's a fact. I believe that's right. And I must explain our cost value more clearly. The taking responsibility and accountability. The emotion now, you feel happy, you got a solution. The behavior, effectively communicate, result, good feelings and mutual understanding. So this is one that gets a lot of smiles. I think it's pretty common. Our management assigns us more work than we can possibly do. I think this is probably international. Again, this makes one feel angry. Storyline, they won't listen, they don't care about our well-being. No action, blame or victim, it's got both components in it. Drama state for sure. Bad feelings, no relief. The mindset shift to responsibility with empathy and accountability. They are overloaded too, and I must help them understand our situation, our workload. Feels good. Have an open and honest communication, good feelings, and deeper consideration for us. So back to my proposal team. I said, when you think about the situation, you're in a tough competition that you must win and you're losing. How does that make you feel? They get scared. So naming the emotion group, I think, is very powerful, very useful. Check in, that's easy to do. And so I work with the group. When you think about the situation we're processing, in the case of the public workshops, I cannot motivate or communicate with children. So we same process, brainstorm this with whatever the situation is. It's a team situation that's written down, and then people write in their workbook their own experience, the truth of their experience of the emotions they're experiencing. What's the red storyline powering the emotion? They said it's hopeless. Our competitor is cheating. I said, how? They said that the competitor is playing tennis once a week with the government's leader. I said, what nonsense. You're in victim. So red storylines are often, almost always drama, victim, or blamer. So back to your group, what's the red storylines you're running about your situation? Write them in the workbook. Straightforward. My proposal team, my client spoke up and said we can match them, green storyline, we can match them technically, then create 4D competitive advantage. I love that because that's exactly what I was doing. This thing about managing their with their perception, their mindset with confirmation bias. And so this surprises people a little bit. I take the group and I go back and I read the red storyline from the chart. If it's on Zoom, it's in the chat room. I asked who gave me that red storyline. Name the behavior that it supports. We're forever behaviorists. See if they can shift it into green. If they can't, and we write them down on the chart or in the chat box, the new storyline, the green one. Most people can do this. If they have trouble, I ask the group to help them and people in the. This is an interesting thing. This shift to red to green, I'm going to say 70% of the people in the workshops can do this just naturally and easily. 10% really struggle. If it's one of those, I get the group to help. Then they do the work, their personal work about them and the workbook. So back to my proposal team. I'm preparing them to make a half-day briefing to the customer, their final interaction. And I said, you can't go in there with anxiety. What do you need to do? They said, we're excited about this. We can speak to excitement, glad group. And I asked them, do you need help from my coaching team to get you ready to do this? And they said, no, we're good. We can do this. So again, we do the work with the group. Same work, same process, simple thing. People write their emotions they're going to express with their green storylines in their workbook. And that takes us into innate personality. So we'll stop here. Thank you for your attention and appreciate it. And see you for the next session, which should be number 17. Be safe and have a good day.